Ian, we're in London and you're on the road to hell.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Can you tell us about the festival?
I've really never been there before,
Right.
so I don't know much about. I know I've been in Norway. I did a couple of albums there.
Yeah.
There is a place called Hell, yeah.
Uh,
Fortunately, not too far from the airport.
And the albums, that was Dirty Laundry with Bjorn Nesjo, is that right?
I did that, yeah, and I did a string thing as well.
Right. Can you tell us about that? Because that was with a 17-piece orchestra, wasn't it? Strings attached.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 18 actually. We couldn't get the 18th bloke on the stage, but that was great. I've never done anything like that before, you know.
And how did the idea come together?
Yeah, people in Norway rang me up, Universal, said, you know, would
Right.
you like to do a record? And it was after Astoria a couple of years ago.
Right.
You know, we think we could do it with like beautiful lights and you know, 18-piece orchestra and 6-piece band. And
Yeah.
I'm mentally adding all this up. But it was wonderful. They paid for it, and we went there. I stayed in the Nobel Suite
Right.
in Oslo, and they're very nice people, Norwegians. Not like the Americans or the British. You know, they tend to sort of do what they say they're going to do.
Right. And the set list for Strings Attached, I mean, it says just numbers from all parts of your career, aren't there?
Well, the idea was, what they did, they came out of the States. I live in Connecticut. And they did me a cappella, basically. I mean, I sat there and played a guitar or a piano or something, and they took that off. So all the guy had, the arranger, was the voice.
Right.
So we looped, and Memphis became like half-time reggae type thing. You know, they put a whole different arrangement behind them all.
Oh, I see.
So we weren't doing the same old thing. And I love stuff like that. Anything odd at this stage in the game really appeals, you know.
So it was done in two sort of bits, really. It was in Connecticut and then over in Oslo, yeah?
Well, no, the arranger came to Connecticut.
Yeah.
We gave him my voice singing the songs only,
Right, right.
and he's a serious classical arranger,
Oh, right, right.
because they think I'm the people in Norway think I'm in the latest in a long line of that way of writing. Some of the stuff I write is quasi-classical, which I thought was highly flattering. You know, they had me there, and. So they put me together with, like, the guy that did the sound was Miles Davis's guy, you know, and he'd worked with Ray Charles and all these people. It was a wonderful experience. I mean, I've never been that big an artist, so to get a chance like that at my age, you know, being older than that was amazing. That was one of the best couple of weeks of my life, you know.
Right.
It was so different.
And that was after the Rant album, wasn't it? Rant was in
2001.
Yeah.
Rant was 2001.
Yeah.
That's a good record, but
You said at the Astoria it was, of all your solo albums, it was possibly your favourite.
well, you know, that's not strictly true. There's 3 or 4 I like. I haven't done too badly as a solo artist. There's been a couple of duff ones, but in the main, it's been all right. You know,
Yeah.
I like the first one I did. I liked Schizophrenic. There was 3 or 4 I liked. Yeah.
Right.
But Rant's very good, yeah, and it was done on a very small budget. I had a great guy, Andy York, who's also on this, you know, and I'm particular with guitar players. I was, after Mick Ronson died, it was 5 or 6 years to find somebody I could really gel with, you know.
Right.
And with Rant, he played a big part in that. He co-produced it and generally jived me up and got me going, you know.
When you say gel, in terms of songwriting and performing, is it all more performing?
He was like Ronson, Andy. He is. In the way that you know, I write everything, but then he's a great arranger. He takes it to the next level.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at arranging, and so it's not only a guitar player, and I can only do it with guitar players. I can't do it with bass players or drummers. It has to be a guitar player.
Right. Because I read somewhere that you said that one of the unique things about Mick Ronson was that as a guitarist, he always came from the song.
Yes.
It wasn't sort of just, you know, let's put a absolutely great solo over this. It was listen to the song, develop the ideas, and that was his.
He was hilarious on sessions because people didn't know him. He'd walk in the room, and of course he wouldn't do anything. He'd just stand there, and they'd play him the track, and he'd be stood there with a guitar and an amp. And nothing would happen. I always remember the Meatloaf sessions, and they were all walking up and down. Jimmy Iovine, Shelley Yakis, all these heavy dudes, and they don't know what he's doing. I know what he's doing, you know, but then it's an 8-minute track, right? Mick doesn't do anything, you know. So You want to hear the track again, Mick? Yeah. Another 8 minutes. I mean, he won't play. First hour, what he's doing is forming the solo in his mind. And then you get this awful mess with Ronson where he's trying to figure out what he's got in his mind onto the, it's very strange. At the end, all of a sudden, just when you're about to give up, bang, here we go, beautiful.
Right. And you were first introduced...
Song within a song.
You were first introduced to him back in '68 by Miller Anderson.
That's right, yeah. I just left Miller. I was in Scotland with Miller.
Right, right. Did you sense that you and Mick Ronson were fated?
I don't even remember. No, the first time he really surfaced in my face was when he was with Bowie, David
Right.
Bowie, yeah.
Right. And going back to the Rant album, the Rant is about your thoughts about England,
Yeah.
based on being an Englishman in America. Is that about right?
Yeah.
How long did Rant sort of take to get together in terms of the songwriting material?
2 years.
Right.
It only took about 6 weeks to record, but the writing of it. There's a song on there called Morons, which is kind of like going back a way. It sounded like a Hoople track, but...
About class system?
Yeah,
Right.
that got it all out. That track lyrically got it all out. That's exactly what I was what I was thinking. I got it out. It took a while, And Andy York was out with Mellencamp. He wasn't going to be back for another year anyway, so it didn't matter, So I just sat around and got him. And from Morons came Rip Off, and then Purgatory. All these songs were coming out.
Nation.
Yeah, and and then it formed. It gave the album form, and it's nice if you get form with an idea with an album,
But what was the spark about England around that? If it was 2 years in the making, in the late 90s, what was it that was getting to you?
It was getting to me in the mid 70s. That's why I left,
Right.
I just don't agree with the upper classes are really showing people what they are now, and people are beginning to find out. I don't know if it's TV, I don't know what it was, but the ruling classes and the upper classes, I wasn't a big fan of, and they wanted like 89% off me.
Tax.
And I just figured I'd been a labourer all my life, and I probably was going to be a labourer again. So what little money I was making, I wanted to keep most of it. I didn't believe in all this. Give them 89%. I didn't see what they were doing with it.
Right.
And it was pretty wild then. It's pretty wild now. One thing and another. They do it a different way now. They stealth it now.
Petrol prices and stuff like that. Any of the politicians since the 60s, the main prime ministers that you've actually liked, or?
No, particularly I couldn't stand Thatcher. Thatcher to me has got a lot to answer for, an awful lot to answer for.
How about Harold Wilson?
Wilson, I can't really remember. I could have told you at the time. Heath I was no fan of. Wilson, who was that guy he had with him? George? I forget. Anyway, it was socialism going through the roof. I mean, we were paying, it was insane. Some people were paying 99%. You can't do that and not really give back. Do you know what I mean? I remember having 2 weeks off work one time, and it was in the summer, and around about December, I got this cheque for £4 because I'd been ill and I'd been off for 2 weeks, so 6 months out, and I'm thinking, this ain't right,
Yeah.
This ain't fair. And I just got totally twisted up with it and decided I'd leave. And I was married to an American girl, so it was easy to get a green card,
Right.
But we got slaughtered. I remember Zepp, when Planty got ill and they carried him out in the stretcher, Oh boy, the melody maker was slaughtering him. But to me, it made sense. It's like, why are we giving you all this money? We'll be back in the factories next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to do us any favours. And then when I had the 2 weeks off when I was ill, you give me £4. I'm married with 2 kids.
Yeah.
And £4, even then, was not a lot.
Right.
It was, £2 a week. No, I was earning about 11 quid a week.
So around that time, when you were sort of all paying all that tax, you saw it as rock and roll would not be the rest of your life. You thought this is going to end someday, and I'm going to.
Well, yeah, I didn't think it was good enough. I mean, nobody knew.
Even with the Mott in the charts.
No, I just thought it was a quickie, I figured, summer off work, that's how we approached it, Stan Stippins, who ran Mott the Hoople, it was always like, you you better write another song. We'll be back in Wiggins's Monday morning. Wiggins's being a factory in Hereford where Stan used to work. You know, we never actually. I think it was the desperation that kept us from going back there. You know, and then a summer turned into a year, and then a year turned into another year. But then nobody ever thought it would last as long as it has done. You know.
But when you were forced for tax reasons to move to the States mainly, is that how is that about right? You went because of the money situation?
Well, I went for that, and I went for Bob Monkhouse. I hated Bob Monkhouse and the Golden Shot and all that. That really used to upset me. Just the weirdest things upset me. I just saw this chart, all-time comedians. You see that in the paper? Tommy Cooper won it, and I was like, yeah, you know. And Bob Monkhouse was 5th, and it was like, no. And Hancock wasn't even in there.
Right. Tommy Cooper.
I left for a few reasons. Yeah, Tommy Cooper was amazing. Yeah, I love Tommy Cooper. Yeah, but punk had come in. They coined the phrase "new wave, old wave." Brilliant PR job. I don't know who invented that, but that wiped out the existing. You know, so it was a good time to go.
But the punk bands like the Clash, they really latched onto you and sort of looked upon you as godfather of punk and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but not at the time. What happened at the time was the press. Because I'd been in a fancy band, you know, like the Voxes and the Bowies and all that, they figured that all the punk people would hate me. So the press went on, I mean, it was disgusting. It was like, you know, you're obscene, you're old, you're senile. It was like really offensive to my parents, you know. And then they had to do this U-turn because all of a sudden the guys in the punk bands were going, no, he's all right. So then the press had to do this immediate, you know how NME is and Melody Maker, real stupid, you know. So then they had to do this reverse. So I was a hero again about a couple of years later, but by then I'd gone, you know.
Mick Ralph's always said that you were the guy in Mott who really knew how to handle the press because you were a journalist yourself.
Yeah.
For a while. What kind of journalism were you doing?
Births, deaths, marriages, you know. 3 months I was fired. Couldn't do the. I could do the typing, but I couldn't get hang of the shorthand. It was like Chinese to me. Very correct, Shrewsbury, you know.
Right.
I forget what the name of the paper was. My dad got me the job. He was mortified when I got fired, you know. No, it wasn't that. I think front men can chat more in general. I mean, Mott were pretty shy as guys, you know. They would have liked to have done the press, but they weren't very good at it, you know. And I understood press. I understood, you know, if you break something, that'll get you more than any decent song will, you know.
So Keith Richards and people like that, you'd learn from them, you know.
No. I learned from Little Richard. No, well, Jerry Lee and such.
Right.
I mean, Jerry Lee was the most arrogant bastard you've ever seen in your life, and such knew how to work an audience. I learned a lot of such.
Right.
Not musically, but the way he was. His timing was perfect.
Right.
And the arrogance of Jerry Lee always appealed to me, you know.
When you did A Nightingale Sings in this gig, you mentioned about Frank Sinatra and the cigarette.
Yeah.
Is that a kind of arrogance that you admire as well, to do that on stage?
It was just comical. And back to Tommy Cooper, I mean, to see this happen, I mean, it happened. It really did happen. And I just saw Frank, you know, 70 odd then, you know, it's not working anymore. You know? I mean, I say on my website to the kids on the website, you know, I say, tell me when I look like a prat, because then that's when I'm going to stop, you know. So I get all these emails. Don't worry, we'll tell you. And they will.
And in your sort of autobiography, the diary that you did on the road in America in '72, you very much, there were certain things that really sort of struck you and knocked you sideways. One of them I read when I think it was in Detroit, and the taxi drivers in Detroit, that you just couldn't believe that you as a band of hip musicians wouldn't be given a lift because of the colour of your skin.
Yeah.
Did that kind of thing not strike you as scary, to then be moving to a country where...
It was scary. It was the middle of the night, you know. And then the guy that took us, he was an old man. He wouldn't talk to us about that. But he was like as mad as his mates as he was at us. He was just totally alien to us. I mean, we had guitar cases and all that. And I'm like, what are you talking about, you know? I ain't done nothing to you, you know.
Yeah.
There's music here. Wouldn't even look at you,
Right. And then you moved over to New York first of all, was it?
Yeah. Well, no, New York State.
Right.
First place I went was Chappaqua. My manager bought me a place in Chappaqua, which is now famous because Bill lives there, Bill Clinton. But then it was just this little village, you know. And then I went into New York. New York about I wrote Schizophrenic in Chappaqua, and then I was bored, so I went I went to Katona, then I went to New York. That was it.
Right.
I had a place here from 85 to 90. I moved to New York in 90, maybe 90 to 95, something like that.
You mentioned about sort of the factory work and going back to factory work, and you saw it all as a sort of a long busman's holiday or that kind of thing. But there were three guys that sort of figured in your career: Guy Stevens, Tony DeFries, and David Bowie.
Yeah.
Of those three, who was like the biggest mentor for you looking back?
Well, they all were. Because if it hadn't been for Guy, I mean, we did 4 stiff albums for Island Records. Nowadays, that's unheard of, you know. Pretty much unheard of then, you know. Guy kept that going, and then, you know, David gave us All the Young Dudes, which was the real big leg up, you know. Mm-hmm. And then Tony was, I don't know so much Tony. Tony wasn't that really keen on us. It was David that was keen on us, and so Tony did what David wanted, you know. But yeah, Guy definitely, and David at those specific times, you know.
And Tony DeFries, I read somewhere that he was the guy who sort of was almost kind of like brainwashing you to say, you're a star, behave like a star, even though you're on the dole, behave like a star, you know, that kind of thing. Was that right? Was he very much into image?
Oh, you had meetings once a week, and he sat you around. He would try and, he was very much a manager. I mean, his idol was Tom Parker, you know. He did it the old-fashioned way. Plus, he'd have these meetings, and like he hated me talking on stage because he wanted to give me that Bowie kind of, you know. He said, every time you open your mouth, it drives me crazy. I wish you would not do this, because, you know, I want to joke on. I mean, I'm not David, you know what I mean? I'm eager, you know. But at the time, I was going for it because I thought he was taking so much of an interest, you know. And he actually got between me. A guy was going to stab me one night in I forget where it was, somewhere in America. And I was freaking out, everything had been wrong, you know, backstage and all the rest of it, and I didn't realise who I was talking to, you know. And all of a sudden the guy pulled a knife, and it was Tony got in the way. Wow. He had this big fur coat, and I figured, well, he's all right. A bit further to go before it actually touches him, you know. But I would add to that list Freddie Fingersley, who was this guy who played piano and all the rest of it, and Fred let me play with him, and it was the first time I got to go to Hamburg and actually think maybe I could do this instead of working in factories, you know.
But the songwriting came first, didn't it? Really?
No. Show off. And ladies came first. No, when I joined Mott, they had 2 writers. They had Mick Ronson and they had the bass player Pete Watts. They were the 2 writers.
Right.
And Pete was great because when I started writing, I started almost immediately at the rehearsals. And Pete said, "Oh, you're better than me. I'm not going to bother." And that's how it came about.
But you've been working as a staff writer for Francis Day and Hunter, haven't you?
Yeah, but like 2 songs a year, you know. K.O. Dwyer kept me on, and it was like embarrassing, you know. A guy called Nicole Williams, who was an actor, still is, I believe. They'd done one of my songs and hadn't got my permission to do it. It was one of those classic little rock and roll things, but they'd done it with a 40-piece orchestra. And I think Mike Smith at would have been CBS then, had spent a lot of money on the orchestra, and then they hadn't got my okay on it. So they had me down Francis Day and Hunter. Me and Roger Glover used to work for. And it was this uneasy, well, will you sign this bit of paper? And I said no, because I was in a factory. First time in my life I got the opportunity. They were in a hole.
Yeah.
So out of that came 15 quid a week for 3 months. But it turned into a year. They kept having me on. They had Engelbert and Tom, you know. I couldn't write them kind of songs.
Right.
You just sort of didn't really try, but they figured somewhere down the line maybe we'll get like somebody who'll suit these songs. They liked the song, but I wasn't writing many, and not really. I was writing more middle of the road, you know, trying to please Donald Piers or somebody, you know. And then all of a sudden, Mott the Hoople.
But they liked your songs, so straight away you were in as with Mick Ronson as the main writer.
Well, they just hit me. You know, I think when you're a writer, it's what hits you. And all of a sudden, I'm with a label. Not only that, I'm with probably the best label in the country, Island Records, and I'm with all these guys with long hair. I was a little fat guy with short hair. And Guy took me down to Taylor's, and you know, all this flattery was going in, and like songs started. And as they were playing, you know, it all started, and I got inspired. I remember I wrote one thing. There was a thing called Half Moon Bay, and we'd been writing this other song, and then I went in one day and just played the same chords backwards, and out came an 8-minute, our epic on the first album. So they were most impressed, but really it was, you know, how all bands begin, you know, it's all that tumbling and jerking, and you're on a label, and you're inspired, you know.
But Guy very much saw you as a big front man, because he said lose weight as well. You describe yourself as a front man. He said lose weight, and he worked on your image and stuff.
But he didn't see me as a front man, he saw me as a keyboard player at first.
Right.
That's where I was sitting over there playing the keyboards, and then he wanted to fire me after about 2 or 3 months, nothing much was happening. And then we played a couple of clubs, like we played a youth club.
He wanted to fire you?
Oh yeah. Well, the band wanted me out first, and Guy wouldn't have it. And then Guy wanted me out, and by this time the band wouldn't have it. I was living a very dodgy existence, you know. Yeah.
Because I read somewhere that you found that once you were in the band, they were like Hereford lads all clubbing together in London, and
I was always like that. Yeah.
And you were a bit out on a limb.
Yeah.
When did that change?
It never really changed, because they're so insular. It wasn't their fault. It's the way they brought up, you know.
Right.
I mean, they're great guys, but they're just insular. That's the way Hereford people are, you know. Tend to keep them. They would go home. I mean, you couldn't keep them in London. They'd be back in Hereford. I said, we've got to go to the States. Forget it, you know. Bad enough getting them out of Hereford. Mm.
So when the famous incident in the gas cylinder, which was your final gig in Zurich, was
yeah.
What were the bad vibes leading up to that?
Well, we were playing in gas cylinders, you know. This is pretty pointless. Ireland were fed up with us by this time. Guy was off on one of his jaunts, and it all seemed pretty pointless, you know.
And then
somebody got a bit of ash, you know, and we were friends again. We split up. We got on the train to come back, and we were friends again. And then we got into London, and all the girls were crying on the platform. Like, yeah. I'll say no more about it. And then Pete Watts was looking for a job. You know, I guess we were all looking. I'm looking for a job, and Pete rang Bowie, because Bowie was looking for a bass player. And Pete said, you know, I wouldn't mind. And then David said, what's happened with Mott? And he said, you know, they're split. I'm looking for a job. And David's like, oh, they can't split, you know. Mm-hmm. And he gave us Suffragette City, which I didn't think was good enough, because we burned our bridges with radio and TV by that time. And then he sat down on the floor in Regent Street, it was, in a publisher's office. He played All the Young Dudes on an acoustic guitar. And it was like...
And you must have performed that now tens of thousands of times.
Yeah.
What's the feeling when you perform it, say at the Astoria?
That's a good song, you know. A lot of people, you know, they grow to hate the songs, and why not? You know, you have to do them over and over. But you know, with that song, it's not like a fast song. It's an easy mid-speed thing. It's nice. It's melodic. You know, I never have a problem. It changes over the years. I just did it with Ozzy, and it's like they've got the guy from Alice in Chains. It takes a U-turn halfway through the song, so that was interesting. You know what I mean? It's just like taking it somewhere else. You know, and Ozzy singing it. You know. I'm rapping away, you know.
And you were going.
But I had to get the actual. What I actually sung on the original single. I had to go back and get the original single and find out what I did, because it's evolved so much since then. Right. I do it differently now, you know. Yeah. And I had it all written down. And Mark Hudson, who's doing the Aussie thing, oh, what's this written down for? I said, because I forgot it. I never, you know, I hadn't done this in 20 years like this.
After all the star bit then that followed then, and the Top of the Pops and all the rest of it, you fell out with Mick Ronson during the Sessions for Violence. Was that the case?
Yeah, yeah.
Could you see the end in sight? Was it beginning to go sour by that point?
No. What happened was Peace went out with us, 3-piece band. Paul Rogers on guitar, a couple of other guys in Peace, and they were opening for us. And Mick was hanging out with Paul a lot, and I was beginning to think something was going on, you know. And of course I'd started writing the hits. There were 2 writers, I'm writing the hits, putting the other guy's nose out of joint. Plus Mick is a blues, you know, Mick's more free form. what I was doing, very stiff, kind of quasi-Euro thing. And we just weren't matching musically. I mean, you can call it what you like at the time, but that's basically what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And Mick plays with me now, and we get on fine, and we understand the difference. But at that time, it was like, with Paul Rodgers, Mick writing simple bluesy songs. I mean, the combination was lethal, Took #1 all over the world,
Yeah. And then Mick Ronson was going to, in Mott, that was going to be the big move forward.
Yeah.
You hoped, obviously, as well. And that must have been absolutely shattering for that to sort of fall through with your record company hassles and stuff.
Yeah, it was illogical. That's what annoyed me. We had the shot. Mick was up for it, but it was, I guess people were tired.
Right.
6 years solid trying to blast it away. No end in sight. And there was friction between members of the band and Mick. And I can see both sides of it now, but at the time you're in this little goldfish and everything's exaggerated, and you feel so precious and you feel so important, and everything's a mountain instead of a molehill. And none of us were, unfortunately, we weren't university educated, so we didn't stand back and look at this. We were just like head first into everything. Next thing you know, I'd had enough.
And that must have been in the one thing that in Ballad of Mott the Hoople, there's one line there that somehow you feel that you let your fans down. What was that? They idolised you. You were a hero. I saw you described somewhere as a big brother who led 70s kids through the teenage angst. In what way did you feel you'd let them down?
Well, it ain't neurosurgery, is it? There's occupations where you can give more. I mean, a lot of people will say to you, to make you feel good, well, you entertain people, you make them happy, so that's your contribution. But I've always sort of seen the glass as half empty. I mean, that's why lyrically I'm like I am. I don't know, because you're going back a way. I don't know what I meant by that, but that sounds approximately what it might have meant.
It was a down feeling at the end of it, an exhaustion feeling for you, and a down feeling and everything.
Yeah, feeling of total freedom. Once it's like a divorce. I mean, I've been divorced. It's not funny. It's horrible. And it was exactly the same with them. It was this dark cloud that would not go away, so you knew you had to go through it and come out the other end. But the thought of doing it, and the thought of annoying people and people being out of work and all that was horrible.
And your first 2 solo albums in the mid-70s must have been a great relief then, absolute total release, yeah?
Well, the first one it was great, Ronson was in top form, we had a hit and all the rest of it. But then the second one, DeFries starts playing games with me, so it works out that Mick's going to get paid more for my second solo album than I am. And that's where that little relationship ended,
Right.
Meanwhile, I was hanging out with people like Bobby Colomby and Jaco Pastorius, and they were saying, you've got great lyrics, you don't have to do rock and roll, you're better than this. So I fell for that one, and then came All American Alien Book, which is very good, but it's not what my lot wanted, so it's kind of royally nosedived, That was the end of me as a big-time artist.
For the rest of the 70s, that sort of influenced you, did it, yeah?
Oh, that messed me up totally. And then I'd done something like Overnight Angels, which was like, and then I did this album Schizophrenic, it was a good album, that brought me back.
And that was with Chrysalis, and that was like a new vibe, a new label and all that.
And they were great, and it did a lot over there, and so we were back in, but then they had me on the road all the time, and I'm one of them guys, I have to stop home to write, I can't write on the road. So then, of course, once you're in that league, now you're supposed to write one a year and continue to tour, and I couldn't do that.
Right. In the 80s, what led to the split with Mick Ronson and the reunion in 88?
Boredom. I mean, he's waiting for me to write, and it'd take me forever. And Van Morrison comes along, or Bob Dylan or somebody like that, he's got a rabbit bundle, all these great people, Go for it, Mick, because by the time he came back, he'd come back with new ideas.
Right.
And I'd be ready. But we were together all the time, wives-wise, kids-wise, Right. But he'd just go off and Mick got bored real easy. He was all over the world doing bits and pieces.
And We Oughta, were you pleased with that as an album?
What's that?
The 89, We Oughta, how's it pronounced?
Why You I Oughta, yeah. It's all right. It's all right.
The 90s, the early 90s, sort of slowly drawing it to a close, the early 90s were two things happened there that prompted songs, Now Is the Time and Michael Picasso.
Yeah.
In the long run, were those sort of positive things for you in that, you
Yeah.
know?
Mick's death was very positive for me. Because it was like life is well short, you know. I mean, I was with him a lot. And, you know, death can be as inspirational as anything else, you know. And I just thought, you know, if you're going to continue to do this, you better start. I'd done stuff like all the good ones at Taken was an album, and then like I'd done a couple of albums I wasn't really happy with.
Short back and sides.
I didn't think I was working as hard as I could be. You know?
Right.
It is a gift. You get a free pass, you know. And I thought you better do something, you know. And ever since then, I've been writing good stuff.
Right.
Ever since Mick died, so maybe he's helping me. I don't know, you know.
And another very, very moving part of the gig at Astoria was Twisted Steel.
Yeah.
Can you tell us the story behind that? Because that's eerie, isn't it?
Well, I looked at it. I mean, Trudy's, my wife, lost a cousin in that, and Cookie was an exceptional young woman. You know, she used to walk around with this boa constrictor hanging up. Her mother's wild, you know, and of course now we've got mobile phones. So while that's going on, she's on the phone. She's in it, and she's on the phone with her mother. It was a horrible experience, you know. And then she was gone. She was dead, you know, and she was only 20. And so the whole family on Trudy's side was horrible, you know. And like, I made this phone call. I was ringing up somebody a couple of days later, and by mistake I rang Cookie's mum, who was like, you know, devastated. I mean, like, she couldn't even talk. And that's what that song's all about. You know?
Right.
It was basically for Cookie's mum, Alice.
How do you feel living in America post 9/11?
Well, the first one, my wife woke me up when the first one, I saw the second one. My son watched it from he works on 23rd Street, you know, my youngest one, Jess. And it was just, who the hell's doing this? China's going through my mind. I mean, all kinds of weird things, you know. You see this 7 minutes of George in the classroom, you know, and I'm thinking, well, I mean, we all had a bit of a problem. Who's doing this, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm getting up there now. It wasn't, I mean, what happened in Russia really hit home, you know. I mean, that's the most horrible thing I think I've ever heard of in my life. That was bad. That was bad. I mean, that kind of heralded, America was like pretty much oblivious until that happened. Then they realised they're right in the middle of it too, as Putin's now realising, you know. Nobody's particularly safe anymore, you know, something's got to change.
How long did it take for Twisted Steel to come together as a song after that experience?
10 minutes. I was over at a friend of mine's house, and it's interesting. It's a musical thing, DEA. But when you go to the middle bit, it still does the same thing. It's the same chords over and over and again, and it's just a vocal that changes. And I love it when that happens, because it means you ain't got to go looking anywhere else, you know.
And guesting at the Astoria, there was Joe Elliott and Brian May,
Yeah.
and your daughter Tracy as well.
Yeah.
Can you just end by giving us your favourite Brian May story, Joe Elliott story, and about your daughter? How they impress you as people?
Oh, my daughter's the total story from start to finish. She's still doing it, you know.
Did you
all
encourage
my kids are great, but they're mules, you know.
Did you encourage her to go into the music business?
Eh?
Did you encourage her to go into the music business?
No, I encouraged them all to do what they wanted to do.
Right.
Do what you want to do. I still say to her now, just keep going. She's been so near, you know. She's been nearly signed. Well, she has been signed and then pulled out at one point. And she's got deals, you know. She's working in France. She has a deal in France, stuff like that. But it's so hard nowadays, you know. And the other two, but they're all like mules. You can't tell them anything. You have to ease in. It's like, no, do I want my kids? There's two of them in the business. No, I don't want them in the business. I know what the business is. It stinks, you know. But it's not my business. It's their business, you know. You can't say anything, you know. And my eldest one, he's got a firm, employs 40 people. Yeah, I can't tell him nothing, you know. What am I going to tell him? He tells me. Joe Elliott, I just went to his wedding. It was fabulous. He finally met this gorgeous girl who I wish he'd met quite a long time ago. And Joe's just powerful guy, so much energy. You know. And why can't we do it? You know, like he's very about the most honest bloke I think I know in the business, Joe. And the whole band are the same. That's why they've lasted so long. Great people. And Brian, well, I've known Brian ever since, you know, Mott. They opened for Mott. The story with Brian would be his hepatitis story. He got hepatitis in the Watergate Hotel. So now they had to get him back to England quick, and they weren't even supposed to do that legally. And we all had to have the jab, 7 o'clock the following morning. Luther Grosvenor, aerial bender, would not have the jab. So Stan Tippins rang him up and said there's a present of the, because he loved presents, Luther. So Stan rang him up and said, there's a present there, this is at 7 a.m. Oh, shall I bring it up for you? Luther says, yeah, it might be records, you know. Stan goes up, Luther opens the door. Stan pulls him out, puts him over his shoulder. Luther's like, no Stan, all the way on his shoulder, next door. Gets the jab, and Stan's sitting there all the time going, you have to have this jab, I know it's painful, and it is. I know it's painful, but if you don't, you're going to die. You're all going to die, you know. And I was retelling this story 2 years ago, and then the room emptied, and Stan and I were the only two left, and Stan said, I never had it. I said, this is not for real, Stan. You told us we were going to die. Never had it. The legendary Stan Tippins.
And next on the schedule for you, after Hell, you got dates in America. You're doing some dates in America. Is there an album that you're putting together at the moment? How's the songwriting?
Well, that string thing's coming out, Sanctuary over there anytime now, because Universal didn't put it out there. Right. So then we had to go through all these dramas with 5 different companies. So that's finally coming out. No, I'm not writing. I'm writing, but it's not anywhere near, you know. And then this will be out, and
the 2 Rant bands, is that going to be the thing for the future as well, to have one?
Well, the Rant band's a pool, you know, like Andy's now in Mellencamp now till next spring or something. But I have a guy called Jack Passarelli, Jack the Mechanic, who's brilliant, you know. There's a kind of Graham Mabry's a bass player over there now. Joe Jackson's an English bloke, very, very good. And you just try and keep this pool of guys, you know.
And songwriting, so you go through long periods of time where nothing, and then So who knows when the next song's going to be?
And it's harder as you get older because you've done a lot. I mean, there's 300 something songs out there, you know, and that's a lot of words, you know, a lot of ideas that you can't use anymore. And as you get older, you live easier. It's not like I'm starving anymore, you know. And the kids are gone, so there's no chaos, you know. So really, you just sit and wait until something, you know, kicks you. But there's always that outboard motor up your bum, guilt, if you don't do it, you know. And so it goes. That's what I'm for. That's what I'm here for, folks.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
When your heart begins to break, it's like burn. You are the day. I ain't gonna be all that love. But when I go, I wanna know I'm sorry. If there's a road that I walk by it, it's not with. This is my head. Blasting these, even our wives get you down. Don't let them blasting these. That's all.
Chris, you're not plugged into the DI, are you? Are you plugged a little bit chaotic in the drums. I've got. Is that about where your max level is? There's something going on with the vocals. I can't figure out. It's a mixer. Hang on, I'll sort it out. Andy, can I hear your vocal mic? Can I hear your mic?
2, 1, 2, hey, 1, 2, hey, hey.
And go.
Yeah, thank you.
then it's all the way from
jamming, and then when I come in, all the way from Memphis, all the way from okay, all the way from Memphis, that's two. All the way from Memphis, all the way from. I might go double, just look.
Okay, yeah.
All you have to do is watch me.
You give a signal.
Right, you tell us what chord it is. Okay.
King.
I might just write it down in my head.
I change at the end because it's go lick. Anything to go over.
I just watch you guys for that.
Sounds alright when you play.
Yeah, it's alright.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm not deafening you too much, alright? I'm not deafening you too much with that.
I've got plugs with it. I'm fine. It's like a little stereo.
I can't really hear that over here, that's the only thing, but I
You
mean...
need a bit more of his vocal. Or you can't do that.
a bit of both, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Maybe
He's really good.
I don't want to put too much of this everywhere because it'll be ugly, you know. You know what I mean? But a little bit of it. You
go with you.
very good.
Okay.
Dudes.
Hey, have we got the tune down, John?
Hang on.
You'll have to hurry up, you know, because Tracy's opening.
Pete, where's Pete?
Pete!
He's going to get some leads.